Whoop, whoop. What's up, Bearcats? Happy Thursday. Hope you're all doing well. It's after 10 p.m. You know what that means. It's time for HMG After Dark. Yeah, pal. Tonight, Dark Side of the Ring, Jimmy Snuka, Nancy Argento. Watching it on Daily Motion. So let's go ahead and get it, pal. Whoop, whoop. Yeet, yeet. What's up, Lab Rat? Good to see you, pal.
Body. He was a brilliant performer. He had freakish athletic talent.
Going up on the top rope, flying off and crashing into your foot. That's awesome.
By 1983, Jimmy Superfly Snuka
was to sell out all the arenas. They were always
time for some pepperoncinis. Whoop, whoop.
This guy's gonna make it.
But hoping that it would just go away.
30 years later, the case resurfaces with shocking new information to challenge the legacy and innocence of one of wrestling's greatest performers.
Part of our goal was to figure out who she was. This isn't just Jimmy Snuka's story. This is Nancy Argentino's story.
Yeah, she was the one who died.
Was it really an accident? Was it his intention to kill her?
By the early 1980s, the World Wrestling Federation explodes in popularity. A key in capitalizing on the star power of its most charismatic performers. But the man fans love more than anyone is the Superfly, Jimmy Snuka.
No, was it really good?
From the moment
Good. Hopefully it was
he
a
joins
good.
the WWF, audiences are entranced with his high-flying acrobatics and wild man persona. He is the embodiment of a real-life Tarzan. His universal popularity led many to believe his star would shine forever, but they were wrong.
From the Isle of Tonga,
Give me Ula Fala, pal. We got Pepper Necklace sighting.
I wasn't interested in wrestling. I was this kid that was growing up in San Francisco, got into a lot of trouble. I did 6 months in juvie for hitting a bus driver. So, I thought, oh shit, I'm really gonna get my ass whooped now from my parents, right? And my mom's brothers are Alpha and Sika. So they sent me to Alpha and Sika and they said, all right, this is what we need to do with you. You're gonna become a professional wrestler. I was 16 years old. You're talking to a young kid that just started in the wrestling world.
Okay, this is okay. No wonder he looks familiar. This is Rikishi's twin brother. Okay. Get me Daba Thunder, pal.
Could have been Hulk Hogan. He just, kept his head on, kept cool. Don Morocco, Sunset.
Hey, Don Morocco, pal. The original The Rock.
Retired about 1988. Jimmy, he spent a lot of time in Hawaii. He basically, I think that's why he latched on to professional wrestling, because it gave him a place, it gave him an identity, it gave him a family, being accepted by crowd, being accepted by people, being a hero, being somebody. Go to him.
Every time Jimmy went in the ring, he kneeled down. People don't know why he do that. It's almost like people that kneel down when you pray, right? right? Jimmy kneels down and he does it to respect his fans. That's why Jimmy did it. In the early 1980s, Snuka enters the World Wrestling Federation. Owner Vince McMahon recognizes his star power potential.
I would say 35 years I've been obsessed with the pro wrestling phenomenon. With Snuka. You know, they brought him in originally, he was a heel. They quickly figured out that they had to convert him into a babyface because he was just too popular. And Buddy Rogers became his manager and he did the switch. We feel we've got what it takes to. It all came together in New York. He was money. He was their biggest star. Snuka was at the peak of his drawing power.
Jimmy also fully embraces the grueling lifestyle of a wrestler on the road.
We go to clubs every night, party every day. It's a lot, man. You know, it was tough.
Go to the matches, go to sleep, work out, repeat.
Being on the road by yourself can be very damn boring sometimes.
Oh, dude, I could never do it.
To have somebody
The road trips by myself always sucked. Those always sucked.
Jimmy had his girlfriend on the road. I don't remember her name right off the bat, but yeah.
Are you talking about Nancy?
Yes. Yes. I'm talking.
I'm the older sister of the late Nancy Argentina. My younger sister and I always say that Nancy was the favorite because she never gave my mother a hard time. Nancy was a very intelligent girl. She had a lot of friends because people were drawn to her. She was a hard worker.
If you really got down to every bad thing that's happened in wrestling behind the scenes in that underbelly, bro, it's...
Nancy was very innocent, even though we lived in a big city.
That changes when Nancy is introduced to the world of professional wrestling at Madison Square Garden, the premier venue for the WWF.
Nancy had a childhood friend named Ellen that they grew up together. Ellen was engaged to a wrestler named Johnny Rods. So Nancy got into the habit of going with Ellen to go to Mexico.
Okay, so Nancy Argentino's sister was engaged to Johnny Rods at one point.
They wait for Johnny, and then, you know, she really liked him, and it seemed to be a somewhat serious relationship right away. At the beginning, we were all like, oh, yeah, that's great. Nancy's happy. And he was really strange because we tried to make him feel comfortable, but he would sit in the corner and he wouldn't talk to anybody except occasionally to Nancy. So he isolated himself. She told my mother that she was in love with him, and she took care of him when they were on the road because Buddy Rogers didn't really want to travel with him anymore, like drive him from place to place.
Buddy Rogers' role extended far beyond an in-ring manager for Jimmy. He would also become his handler and chaperone on the road.
He said Jimmy was a sweet guy, but he was hooked on cocaine and other junk, and he was totally uncontrollable. And it reached a point be in the car with Snuka anymore because he would snort cocaine brazenly while they were driving.
Damn, pal.
So they talked to my sister Nancy, and all of a sudden that was her job.
Oh.
She would map out the places. She'd drive the car.
Yeah. So the WWE. So wait a minute. So the WWE kind of sort of hired Nancy to be like Snuka's agent, like actual manager.
That my stepfather Ralph had his doubts about him.
As Jimmy and Nancy's relationship grows, her family begins to see the cracks hiding behind Jimmy's quiet facade.
It was not that many times that I met him. I'm Louise. I'm Nancy's sister. I grew up with her. We were close. The whole family was close. My parents were away on a weekend, and I came home.
Yeah, some guys need him, and Snuka was clearly one who needed one.
And I sat down to eat with them.
Thing was that, Buddy Rogers was tired of being that.
Just yakking and chatting and said, "Oh, how are you?" Blah, blah, blah. And he didn't like how I was acting, and he just looked over me and he put his hand like up to my throat, and he said, "Could," and he gave me that wrestling face. I backed up.
You can tell.
Oh, come on. An ad right now, pal?
With just half a power sheet. Toss like a boss. Arm & Hammer Power Sheets clean 3 times more small loads than premium towel detergent at the same price.
What other repeat?
You can
Same damn ad. Come on, pal.
just half a power sheet. Toss like a boss. Arm & Hammer Power Sheets clean 3 times more small loads than premium towel detergent at the same price. Toss out the mess. Toss in the power sheet. Toss out pricey. Now,
Third time? Are you kidding me?
Arm & Hammer Power Sheets clean 3 times more small loads than premium towel detergent at the same price.
I said, "Wow." And I looked at my sister. I said, "I don't want to eat." And I went upstairs. And then when she came upstairs, I got her in the bathroom and I said, "Nancy, you need to get rid of him." And she was all apologetic. Like she looked kind of like timid, not what I was used to seeing in her. And she said, "Oh, no. He's just tired. He's been working hard. It's okay." He treated me that way. So he said, here, I want to give you something. And I looked, and in my hand were like cocaine. I think it was cocaine. And Nancy was upset. She just said, "Don't do that. Don't do that. She doesn't need that." And I think I gave it back to him. And I said, no, keep it. And I just said goodbye to him.
Damn, dude.
I thought, change in her personality all of a sudden.
Despite her family's deep concern, 22-year-old Nancy Argentino on the road with her boyfriend, wrestling superstar Jimmy Superfly Snuka.
I didn't have a relationship with her because Jimmy was very protective with that, especially when it comes around all these crazy shark wrestlers. You know what I mean? I don't think anybody had a relationship with her, because they knew who Jimmy was. They knew who she was with.
So did you ever meet Nancy?
I met her, yeah. She didn't seem to really like me. Maybe it's because he and I were arch enemies, or maybe it's because she knew I was friends with his wife Sharon.
At any point in time, did you know that he was married?
Wait, what? He was married at the time? I did not know that. That's news to me, pal.
But how could he be with anyone else if he was with Nancy? It never crossed our mind because they were always together.
Jimmy and his wife Sharon are still living together with their 4 children in North Carolina. Time on the road is allowed in.
My name is Kevin Haberman. I'm a journalist. I work for the Morning Call. It's a newspaper in Allentown, Pennsylvania. So it's January 1983. Jimmy Snuka is at Howard Johnson, Salina, New York. He's there with Nancy Argentino. Apparently, other guests are calling the front desk saying, "It sounds like a man is beating a woman."
In my apartment sleeping, and I got a phone call at 2:00 in the morning from Nancy. She was screaming into the phone, "Lorraine, you have to help me. I have to get out of here." I said, "What's wrong?" She said,
"What's up, Wallrads? He's dead. End of story." Hope they get the guy.
So police respond. Police claim that Jimmy Snuka has Nancy Argentino by the hair, and he's dragging her across the wall.
Yeah, road wife, home wife.
So police attempt to intervene, and they're met with almost superhuman strength by Jimmy Snuka. And he starts resisting arrest and manhandling the police. There were also police dogs who responded. While he's fighting the police, he's also apparently fighting the dogs as well. It was unbelievable.
Damn, fighting police dogs?
Because I didn't know when she went. So I waited. And finally, early in the morning, she called me back.
Yeah, I think he was also, like, from what I understand, too, from what April Hunter was saying, he was also about to go testify against other
Arrested on charges of
people in healthcare for like, including his own company for, you know, like he was a whistleblower.
I'm a journalist who wrote the 30-year anniversary story about
Super Wild West, pal.
one of the charges pending against Jimmy Snuka is the 3rd degree. This charge is said to be as a result of an assault upon.
Okay, a lot of this is new news to me. I did not know that. This stuff.
Never struck me or intentionally harmed me in any way from January 18th, 1983, nor at any other time in the past.
Right and piss Jimmy, pal. What's up, Revamped? Good to see you. Whoop whoop.
So after Jimmy Snuka was charged,
a lot. So they really put everything on my sister to make sure that he got to the next match.
Back on the WWF circuit, Jimmy and Nancy traveled from town to town across the Northeast.
So one of their regular stops was Egg Hall.
What are we smoking on tonight? Fortune. Actually, let me check. I think it is Fortune Cookie. Let me double check. Fortune Cookie. Yes, pal.
The WWF was important to Allentown.
To see Andre the Giant hanging out somewhere at a bar, or see a big star hanging out at the George Washington Motor Lodge.
At that exact moment in May, I believe, of 1983, they were shooting some of the big angles in his feud with Don Morocco.
Oh, dude, that's such a good strain, man. Love it.
Chain matches and cage matches. And it was looking good. Snowball was just starting to roll.
In the early hours of May 10th, 1983, Jimmy and Nancy arrive in Allentown to tape an episode of Championship Wrestling.
Jimmy Snuka leaves the George Washington Motor Lodge and goes to film wrestling. He films a couple sessions, comes back to the motel, and then leaves again. Leaves in the afternoon, and comes back about 9 p.m.
Jimmy heads to his room where Nancy has been all day. Just a few hours later, the motel's other occupants are awoken by a disturbance outside.
What woke me up was the sirens. My room was not far from Jimmy's room.
There was an ambulance that had been sitting outside Snuka's room. So what's going on over there?
I could see the police car in the ambulance and roped off in some yellow tape. And Snuka leaning up against the cop car. Jimmy looked pretty scared. It was bad. It was very bad.
Whoo, boy, here we go.
On the night of May 10th, 1983, emergency responders arrive at the George Washington Motor Lodge in Allentown, Pennsylvania, where Jimmy Snuka and his girlfriend, Nancy Argentino, have been staying with several other wrestlers.
It was between 11:30 and 11:45 that we had gotten called to an unconscious female. My name is Shirley Reeve, and I was a paramedic in 1983. We drove up to the scene, and the room door was open. Jimmy was standing there.
Yeah, he
with
did.
Detectives. She was in bed, covered up with a sheet, and examined her. Her pupils were fixed and dilated, and it's more indication of a head injury. And I'm like, well, she's in bed, like not on the floor, not outside. He was just touching the feet, and I had to basically drag things out of him. And he just said that they must have wrestled a little bit too much the night before when he pushed her over, and she hit her head. So she came inside, they went to bed. He went to his wrestling match the next morning, came back. She was still conscious, but I guess was becoming a little bit lethargic or sleepy. So he just said, well, I'm going to go to my match. I'll come back and check on you later on. So when he came back later on, then she wasn't responding. She was having difficulty breathing, and that's when he called the ambulance. I did do an intubation with an airway in. We started the line. We gave her some drugs and just took her in.
Man, dude.
While Snuka's at the hospital and they're trying to revive Nancy, he's starting to tell person after person what happened. Interview all these witnesses in the ER. they all say that Snuka mentioned some sort of conflict, either shoving, striking, that somehow he physically pushed or struck Nancy, and she fell down and hit her head.
I was in my room, dead sleep, and it was about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, and the phone rings. They pick it up, and they say, this is the Lehigh Valley Hospital. Can I speak to Caroline Argentino? So I get up, and I go in my mother's room, and I wake her up. I said, Mom, the hospital's on the phone, and she comes to my bed, and I hear her say, is she going to be all right? And then I hear her say, dead? Dead? So Jimmy, he got on the phone, and as far as I can recall, he started like blubbering and saying that, oh, it was an accident. It was an accident. She fell and hit her head. She hung up the phone. She went and told my father, and then my sister Lorraine.
It was like we were all walking around like zombies because we were in shock. We just couldn't believe it. We never thought that it would end up like that.
Yeah, dude. Oof.
Just called all the family members and all of our friends, and I cried.
Yeah, I think it's time for a little smoky tokey after that one, pal. Especially since we got a commercial break happening too.
Sandwich paired with a perfect portion of soup is made today. Go for the French dipper or spicy chicken dipper. No spoon necessary when your sandwich is built to do the dipping.
We still got another one? Are you kidding me? I skip it for another? Still some smoky tokey. Whoop whoop.
Now, the news of Nancy's death has made its way to WWF.
How much you want to bet McMahon told Snuka to say that?
Got a hold of Vince Jr. Vince says, have you heard anything about Snuka and his girlfriend? I said, as a matter of fact, here I am with Lieutenant so-and-so. And I put him on the phone to Vince.
Believes that Snuka will continue to cooperate with the investigation, and his star performer is released without charge.
Oof. Yeah, like that's kind of crazy there. Vince McMahon stepping in and getting involved? That's sketchy right there, too.
Well, Nancy's funeral was so disturbing. You were laid out for 3 days, and then you had a mass, and then you were buried. The second day, Buddy Rogers walks in with Snuka, and he's wearing flip-flops and these really, really short shorts and some kind of tank top.
Buddy Rogers was leading him around, pretty much. Then he went over to the coffin and he started crying on the coffin and touching her. And my father pulled him off the coffin.
Pulling the strings.
I asked my mother, did he say how sorry he was? And she said, no. He said, she looks terrible. Now, that was a pretty weird thing to say. You know, of course she looks terrible. She's dead. The Undertaker came over to my stepdad.
Damn, dude.
Said, you know, I have to tell you, this is disturbing because we had a hard time getting her to look good because she had a huge bruise around her neck and she had multiple cuts and abrasions all over her body. Then I think, you know, my stepfather knew that something was terribly wrong.
Yeah, if you got the Undertaker and like telling you, yeah, there was all kinds of bruises and cuts all over her. Like, hold on a second, what the fuck?
A little to slow the career of Jimmy Superfly Snuka. In the summer of 1983, and just a few weeks after her passing, Snuka is back, continuing his storyline with adversary Don.
So was there like a part of you that was thinking like something might happen to
Sure.
Jimmy?
Selfishly, I was worried, yeah. Just out of my own.
Yeah, dude, bro.
There's a lot of money down the road to be made.
All right, turn the fan off 1 second.
Becomes a career-defining moment for the Superfly.
People are lining up all over the country to see this match. And it just set the place on fire. Holy hell. Jimmy was such a star. And people wanted to see him jump off the top gate and splash.
I'll never forget that because I was there when he came off of the cage. I mean,
He just rocked New York.
Jimmy, he tried things that people never tried before. He was a high flyer. He probably spent more time off the mat than on the mat. I'm Carol Snuka. I was married to Jimmy for 20-some years. Sometimes, every now and then, somebody would make a comment and said something about, I know what you did, Jimmy. I'm going to be waiting for you.
Fans congregating outside the stage exit, and Snuka comes out, and there's a woman who yells to Snuka, "Hey, Snuka, you goddamn fucking murderer! When are you gonna kill another girl?"
He's always said to me, I know what I did. Let the other people think what they want. Okay, if they want to think I did that, that's them. That's in their mind. That's not my mind. I know what I did in my mind, and my God knows, and that's all I have to worry about. They want to talk, they want to do that, that's fine. Doesn't bother me.
While Snuka's career in the WWF is reaching new heights, authorities in Allentown continue their investigation.
The challenge that they faced in trying to prosecute this case was they had a dead body. They had a woman who clearly had injuries, but they had no other witnesses. They had no confession.
The fact that somebody just tells different stories is certainly not enough evidence to charge anybody with a crime. My name is Frederick Conjure. I was the police chief in Whitehall Township, Pennsylvania in 1983. The lieutenant in charge of the investigation, I never had any reason to doubt that he wouldn't do the best he could to investigate the case, and I think he did.
Although they didn't drive Snuka around to try to find the place where Nancy had supposedly fallen, they did go to the trouble of sending 2 Whitehall officers 100 miles from Allentown to the family house in Flatbush, Brooklyn.
Detective Percannon sat in my living room, sitting there saying, you know, we're sorry, but we're going to rule this as an accident, that she fell by the side of the road. At that time also, Snuka's promoter kept calling the house. My mother got on the phone, and I heard him say to her, Mrs. Argentino, I'm so sorry for your loss. Do you think like $25,000 would help you? At that time, my mother knew what was going on. She said, do you think that my daughter's life is worth $25,000? I hung up.
Unable to bring
Bro,
against Snuka.
does that not sound exactly like the kind of behavior they were showing during the Ring Boy scandal?
Go to sleep. And he went off to his matches. He didn't come back till like 8 hours later. By then, she was dead.
The Argentino family won a $500,000 default judgment against Snuka, who didn't show up, and his lawyers then did a filing with the court. Snuka hadn't paid them. The family never collected a dime of that $500,000 judgment.
Jimmy's family and Jimmy didn't do anything about it. They never went. They never showed up. They didn't do anything. I don't know who advised him on that, but I feel it was the wrong decision. I think it should have been handled right then and there.
My mother just gave up. She threw in the towel. You know, she had a very hard time dealing with it, very hard. We all were so disgusted with the whole thing. We just had to get on with our lives.
His drug problems got worse at that point, and then he became unreliable. And his decline owes to guilt over exactly what happened with Nancy Argentino is pure speculation, but it couldn't have helped. And so he did the descent of the wrestler, went to the AWA, went to finally the indie circuit. Finally, you know, the autograph shows where you're not doing anything except signing your name for people who remember you when.
As the years pass, Nancy's story is nearly forgotten by everyone except her family. Then in 2011, interest in solving her mysterious death was suddenly renewed.
2014, and I get a call from Adam from the morning call, and he said, hi, we're doing an article about the 30-year cold case death of your sister Nancy Argentino.
It clearly was a mystery there, and it seemed that there was a story that was really ripe for us to dive into and figure out, one, what the hell happened, and two, what can we bring to light that nobody's ever seen before and that nobody's talking about.
2013, I was working for the morning call. My editor was a big wrestling fan, and he just thought it would be something interesting to revisit on the 30th anniversary.
One of the first things I did in my reporting was try to find the autopsy report. So I called over to the Whitehall Township Police Department to try to get the files. I called the coroner's office. He said he wasn't allowed to turn it over because the case was still technically open. So really, it was up to us to find another way to go get that document.
And then we came across the wrongful death lawsuit. Within that lawsuit, there was tons of information. That's where things really picked up.
Unlike the files from the criminal case, the documents contained within the family's lawsuit are unsealed.
That was brilliant. Good journalist work right there. Real good journalist work. That's a journalist, boys. That's a journalist.
Nothing grinds more types of food waste than the next generation of
peels, fruit pits. It's you.
I couldn't have done it without you.
You got that right.
Incinerator. Kitchen better.
Is that okay? It was not a repeat. I thought it was going to be a repeat of that ad.
Spoons, they're out. Panera's new chips.
All right, 3 unique ads. I'll give them credit for that. Oh, and I can skip this one. Nice.
Surprisingly, it includes Nancy's never-before-released autopsy report.
Ooh, good catch.
Nobody had seen publicly until our story came out. It says, the pattern of her injuries is consistent with a moving head striking a stationary object. It is not consistent with a single simple fall in view of the other injuries that she has, scalp, facial, and bodily bruises and abrasions. It says that the magnitude of the injuries may even be suggestive of maid abuse. The last sentence of this document is really the bombshell that came out of the autopsy report. And it says, I believe that the case should be investigated as a homicide until proven otherwise.
Whoo, that's kind of that's a damning statement right there, pal. That's some good shit. Dude, props to that guy. He did a damn good job with that.
30 years death. A newly discovered autopsy report suggesting a potential homicide raises questions about the 1983 police investigation.
Because now we're looking at, okay, how was there a cover up and how much of it, you know, because you got to remember that Vince McMahon influence.
But I could tell you, if I were the defense attorney, I'd say, well, of course, he didn't have any dirt or anything because he took her back to the hotel room. She lay down in bed. Then she was put on the ambulance.
Well, this was brought up in the case years and years later. I believe the case should be investigated as a homicide.
until proven otherwise.
Yeah, and we're back to it was investigated as best as it could be investigated, I guess. So, did everything that was conceivably possible.
No, that journalist did his work, man.
So as
He did a good job.
Of course, Jimmy Snuka has no clue that there's a reporter in Allentown, Pennsylvania who's investigating this case. And while we're working on the story, his book comes out.
Published in December 2012, Snuka's autobiography marks the first time he publicly addresses the events in Allentown, as well as the meeting he had with McMahon and local authorities.
So these are the original police documents.
That's exactly something right there. What is Vince McMahon doing being involved in this? This has nothing to do with him. Why is he sticking his nose in it?
Unlike all of the other interviews that were done in this case. We do know that after that meeting, the case effectively went cold. The police interviews stopped. There was nothing else in that file.
Vince McMahon would have great reason to defend Jimmy Snuka. Let's say at the time he is charged with murder in 1983. That would be a terrible thing for the WWF.
Vince McMahon is a businessman, and no matter what business you're running, if one of your top employees is being investigated for murder, that's bad for business.
Jimmy told
Or
me
you can make
about
it good for business by being like
Vinny,
utterly condemning him and cutting him off.
He trusts him 100%. He didn't read or write English. He didn't understand it. You know, with his contracts, with everything, he trusted the people. He actually said to me one time, people would come to him before a match and he'd say, Vince said, sign this or you won't get paid after the show. He would sign papers and he had no idea what they said. And I've tried to find out what happened in that room back in '83.
In my opinion, I do feel bad for the widow because I really think she was getting worked. I think she got worked.
Said to him, it's over. Don't worry about it. It's done. He thought it was done.
There's no transcript of the meeting. It's the only interview there's no transcript of. And then seemingly the investigation stops there. And there's been a lot of speculation on what could have happened in that meeting.
I haven't a clue. I mean, I don't see that makes any difference. I would only say there wasn't anything significantly said or done, so that's why there's no record of it.
The meeting with McMahon and law enforcement isn't the only section of the book to stir controversy, but also the way he portrays his relationship with Nancy.
And obviously he covered the situation with Nancy in there as well.
Right, because he couldn't do a book and not. I had said to him, are you sure you want to put that in there? And he said, definitely. He said, that's my book. It's my life. It's got to be in there.
And in there, he talks about, oh, yeah, Nancy was a nice girl, but Nancy ruined his life. When we read that, we were like, Nancy ruined his life.
When I got to the part about my sister, I was furious. He kind of insinuated she was a once-in-a-while girlfriend. Denied that he ever hurt her. He never touched her. Why would he do that? So he totally denied that.
It's not exactly the same. And that was one issue over the years as he talked about this in some radio interviews and other accounts. It was always just slightly different with some of the details.
And she got out, you want to go use the bathroom, pulled over to the side. I guess after she got done, she came back over like a...
What about the story he was telling to the people in the hospital about how they were play wrestling?
For decades, Snuka has maintained Nancy's injuries occurred en route to Allentown, with no mention of any other passengers in the car.
I understand that you were at the George Washington Hotel on May 10th, 1983.
Yes, I was. I was there, George Washington Hotel in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Yeah. We drove to Allentown, Pennsylvania, me, Jimmy, and her. We jumped into the car and drove there.
Okay, so you and Jimmy and Nancy drove together to Allentown.
Yeah.
And what do you remember from that ride all over?
Oh, it was fun. I was in the back seat. We had the Elvis going.
Oh, so Sam Fatu was actually in the car with Jimmy and Nancy. I did not know. Oh, wow. Damn, pal.
Yeah. As soon as we arrived there at Allentown, Jimmy and Nancy went their way, their room, and I went my way to my room. And that's when all that stuff took place when Nancy got killed that night.
You recollect what kind of his story was that he had told about what happened with Nancy?
I don't really know what Jimmy told
They were driving, coming into Allentown. She had to use the restroom, and so she walked outside the car, and she fell while she was using the bathroom outside the car. Do you remember that story at all?
No, I don't remember that story.
Did you ever have any personal interactions with Snuka yourself, or not?
Not that I recall that I actually,
Well, here's the thing. The only reason I'm mentioning that is because the person that was just in this house before you,
said he was in the car.
Said he was in the car. So, and he's never told his story before. So had you ever heard that there could have been a third person in the car?
When you ask me about that, I somehow I had heard that, but I mean, if you pinned me down and said what day, time, who was this person, but there was never any contradiction to Snuka's story.
Yeah, we're talking 30 years ago.
So I did talk to Sampot too, and I think that might be confused because he's never told me that. But the wrestlers, they're not lying. It's just they don't remember the whole thing.
Which is true. A lot of these guys, they don't really there's parts and pieces that are missing and stuff they misremember.
The attorney's office responds to intense public is being officially reinvestigated.
The main difference in how the district attorney's office handled the case in 1983 versus how the district attorney's office handled the case in 2013 was the district attorney's office in 2013 ultimately put it to the people. We are going to put this in front of a grand jury. Sure enough, the grand jury thinks there should be charges filed in this case. Jimmy Snuka should be charged with murder.
On September 1st, 2015, Jimmy Snuka is arrested and charged with third-degree murder. He's now 72 years old, and only a month earlier had announced he was suffering from stomach cancer.
There's a few articles that we saved over the years, this being one of them. It's really happening after all these years. Better late than never.
When I started working on this, I never thought that just a couple years
Absolutely, they definitely do.
would become a headline everywhere. It was one of the biggest stars in the history being arrested and being charged with murder because of a story in the local newspaper. That just doesn't happen, and it was surreal then, and it's still surreal now.
You did good work, man. You should be proud of yourself.
He didn't understand anything at that point. He had too much brain damage. Honestly, I think it was a blessing because when he went through the courts, he didn't know what it was about. And I think if he had known what it was about, it would have been devastating to him.
They had a series of hearings, and all
Panera's new ciabatta dippers are in. Each melty sandwich paired with a perfect portion of soup is made to dip. Go for the French dipper or spicy chicken dipper. No spoon necessary.
All right, how we got another skip. That's nice. It's the same one.
For Nancy's family, seeing Snuka confronted with his past in a courtroom is the only justice they'll ever get.
Everybody was talking about it. They knew what he did. So we were happy that he got somewhat of punishment for Nancy's death. So
It hurted me bad because I know what type of person he is. I can't see Jimmy hurting anyone. That's what I believe.
The family, was still felt slighted. Somebody lost a daughter. They're certainly, have to be saddened or hurt.
The one shame about this case
Yeah, get an ROI on that, pal.
The event occurs in 1983. We go 30 years before charges are filed. But then a judge rules that Jimmy Snuka is incompetent to stand trial. So he never gets to fully clear his name. The Argentinos never get to fully get a prosecution. There was no final resolution on the case. And that's why people continue to debate it.
10 days after the ruling on January 15th, 2015, Snuka succumbs to his cancer and dies.
It was devastating for me. It was sad. I was pretty depressed, you know. He lost a good man, a good person, you know. Till today, I'm still angry about it. I'm angry that the man passed. I'm angry what people say about him. You know. It's sad. All the way around, it was sad on both parties. I loved it, Jimmy, a lot.
Dude, I'm sorry, dude, but man, that evidence, the actual evidence, it's.
What happened with Nancy. You can't overlook the violence that's
Plus his drug habit too.
So it's a complicated legacy, and it's a legacy that will always be clouded by his personal life. There is no more separation of the ring and outside of the ring. What happens outside of the ring is just as influential these days as what happens in the ring.
Jimmy Superfly Snuka stands as one of the most iconic professional wrestlers in history. A daredevil acrobat, far ahead of his time. But his legacy will never escape the events in Allentown. For Nancy's family, her memory lives on.
Yeah, dude. Sometimes you gotta rip that Band-Aid off. You just gotta.
Share the story.
I can tell you from personal experience, ripping that Band-Aid off and facing the truth is a lot less painful than continuing to deal with it.
Seek justice. There's no closure. Anyone in her family. I feel really bad for them. They lost their daughter. Okay, something should have been done. I think letting it go for 32 years caused a lot of damage.
I think too often stories of domestic violence, and especially when they involve powerful men, center around the men, and the women are reduced to just the victim. And you don't know anything about them except this is the person who was attacked by someone. This is the person who was the victim.
As you can see, she was filled with life, and she had so much hope for her future. She was 19 here.
She deserved better.
When she was 23, her life was just cut down too briefly.
It's a great picture of her.
She and her family deserved better at the end of the day. All right, gang. That's what's going to do it for us tonight. See, tomorrow is Friday Locker Room. We'll be back with a very, very late start SmackDown watch-along. The point was going to be a complete replay watch-along. And, of course, Smack Attack Saturday. And then we're doing a late start replay watch-along for NXT Deadline. And then Sunday, the record with our boys, Jimmy T and DeVette. And then we're doing TNA replay watch along Sunday night. And then, of course, Monday Locker Room. Impact Attack, whoop, whoop. And then, of course, you can always catch me every Wednesday night after the AEW watch along at twitch.tv/LGBrandon, whoop, whoop. Hope you guys have a great rest of your night. Much love. Giggity, giggity. Yeah, pal.